Welcome to Let Go, Let EFT, where we are learning and leaning in with you, with your hosts Michelle Puster and Dr. Laura Spiller. EFT is a beautiful model helping people connect with themselves and the people that matter the most, developed by Dr. Sue Johnson.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, welcome back. Talking about affairs.
Yeah, this is part 6 of our affairs series. There's a lot to talk about with affairs.
Yes, there is. And today we're going to talk about a particularly interesting, difficult, challenging part, which is the injured partner's questions. So many questions. And how do we handle them? How do we put them into the cycle? What do we do with all the questions?
Yeah. So just diving right into what's hard about this, kind of maybe starting with the validation, right? I mean, they have good questions. And we can all, I think, put ourselves in that position, either through experience or through the empathy that we cultivate of, you've been shocked probably, didn't know this was happening, thought your relationship was safe. Just had this huge, reveal of a huge threat to your connection, your future, your safety, knowing that you're loved and wanted. And we naturally assess threat and want to know, how dangerous is this? Right. How distant are we? How safe or unsafe am I with my partner?
Right. Yes. And questions are tricky because there are legitimate and good questions. And so go back and watch the assessment part, because you want to make sure that you have done a really good assessment around, is the affair over? Is the contact over? And so we're not talking about those. And sometimes you have to, you do an assessment, of course, it's ongoing. So sometimes you come back and you
For sure.
ask follow-up questions like, all right, so how is that contact going, or how do you handle that? So we're not talking about those kinds of questions, because those are legitimate, and you definitely have to make sure that you have a clear picture and the injured partner has a clear picture of this affair and that it's over and all of those details. We're talking about the questions that don't stop once they've been answered. And of course, we don't know, just like the injured partner doesn't know, is there something ongoing, right? We can have a kind of an idea, hopefully we have an idea. We feel like as therapists that it's over, but we don't ever know for sure, just like the injured partner. But yeah, we're talking about the questions that just keep coming, where even the injured partner is saying like, there isn't really an answer they can give me. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't help. Like, we're talking about the questions that become part of their cycle.
Yeah. And it's those, how could you?
Right.
Why her or him or them, how was I
Yes.
not good enough for you? How could you hide it from me? What does this mean about our relationship? So, I think about these kinds of questions as a shielded, protective expression of pain. Right? It's a way of saying I hurt, but it's very much sort of directed at the partner, and a kind of, how could you? What does this mean?
Right. Yeah. And I love that reframe, because it really does help imagine, for us as the therapist, there's so much pain here. It just feels like impossible to express it and impossible to get reassurance. And it just is coming out in like floods. And so what a nice way of thinking about it, that this is a shield around the pain. And then it does get really complicated and complex, right? Because the injuring partner does try to answer the questions. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes not. Sometimes they're like, well, that's obviously
I've answered this before. Why can't
right. And or they try and they quickly see there is no answer to give. And so it does become a nasty cycle within, talking about and processing and trying to repair after affair, because the injured partner quickly sees there's no answer I can give, or I try to answer, or I try to stay calm, and then it's like, shh. And as you said, we can kind of start to see, oh, the reason that this isn't bringing reassurance, isn't bringing trust, isn't bringing safety, is because they're not really talking about the pain and the hurt. There's like this protective shield of the question that's like getting in the way of sharing the pain and being able to be responsive to the
Yes.
pain and hurt.
Yes. I mean, I think this is what's hard about this is if we just kind of go with their questions, we can be kind of up here in the cycle, caught up, trying to get answers to the questions or how to answer the questions. And we're really not working where they're alone, where they need us to be, which is with just this overwhelming pain and fear.
Right.
Safe with you. Will I ever be safe with you? How do I figure that out? How big of a threat is this? Are you going to forgive me? Will you love me again? Am I ever going to be worthy of that trust? Can I trust myself? Because I don't understand why I did this, and it's so scary, and I don't want to hurt the person that I do love. Those are the places where
Yes, it's heartbreaking.
I'm alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what do you feel like is hard with this is for us as therapists? What's one of the many reasons this is hard for us as therapists?
Yeah. Well, I think that we can get really pulled into that question and answer cycle too,
Mhm.
for lots of different reasons. I mean, one, we are so empathic. Our attachment system is in the room, right? We can feel for one or both of them a lot. And so sometimes we question their honesty. We may have that same feeling of how safe is this relationship? How big of a threat is
Mhm.
this infidelity? Are we really helping them to try to repair? So we can get pulled into wondering about the answers to the questions.
Yes. And it can be very dysregulating for us. It can be very dysregulating, like you said, all the pain that's in the room, trying to sort of like all of a sudden we feel like mediators and trying to get, okay, like, yeah, that's a valid question. Let's try to have you answer this question. And then it doesn't go well, right? Like you said, if we just stay up here,
Mm-hmm.
and then we might start to feel ineffective. We might start to feel helpless and powerless, which probably is somewhat how one or both of the couple is feeling, how one or both of the partners are feeling. And so, yes, that's us kind of getting pulled into that. And it's just, oh, it's an awful place.
Honestly, I can feel my heart beating quickly and my throat tense as
Mhm.
we talk about this,
Yeah.
right? Because it is scary, painful. There's so much uncertainty. I mean, I can just feel it even as we're talking about it. It's a
Yeah.
lot. And then when we're with our clients in person or online, but we're with them, I mean, our system is having to hold a lot. Our system is
Right.
having to hold a lot. And we get swept up into that cycle.
Yes. And this is where I am so grateful for the EFT cycle, because it's
Yeah.
kind of like, whoa, I want to get out of here just like they do. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm,
I just want like,
mhm.
whew. And thank goodness for the cycle, because it really helps us organize what's happening. It
Right.
helps us give us something productive to do with these questions, which is, like you said, see them as a shield for the pain.
Yeah.
So if we get into, okay, how do we put these questions into the cycle?
Yeah.
How do we help them see that the questions, while they are valid and understandable,
Mhm.
are pulling them into a cycle where it's a lose-lose for both?
Yeah. And I think, we've got to go really slow,
Yeah.
really slow. Um, And, we're thinking about the questions, right, are that the action tendency, they're the what we do part of temp or, affect assembly, they're
Mhm.
the reactivity to things that come to the surface.
Right.
So typically, right, we want to validate the questions, and we've given you a little bit of meat there, even on how you validate the importance of the questions already.
Mhm.
Um, but then try to slow them down. And I even say, the questions come up, right, because you need your partner's help to feel
Right.
safe again.
Yes.
Of course, they're coming up, and somehow you're trying to answer it, but you're missing each other and it's not really working. So maybe we can slow down and kind of expand this more and figure out more about like what is actually happening on the inside and how those questions are trying to help you.
Right. Yeah. I love that way of just acknowledging that there's a lot of hurt and pain. They're trying to get reassurance. They're trying to manage their pain. They're trying to manage the feelings that are coming up, and it's not working for them. And I love that idea of just like, let's slow down here. And so, yeah, like putting it into the cycle, thinking about, okay, when do these questions come up for you? Like, what was happening just before you started, just before you asked that question? Like that kind of like, when did things go okay to not okay? So it might be, well, they picked up their phone, or, a ding came over the phone, or they stayed late, or whatever. Okay.
Yes.
So
So
that's
great.
so
We're helping
helpful.
them to identify the cues that start that process in their system.
Right. Ah,
When
so
you
then,
hear that ding of the phone, let me know. Like, yeah, what's that little cascade of internal experience? Like what happens?
mhm. What happens for you? Help me understand. And then we can ask even more questions. Like maybe they're talking about something and they're kind of like, okay, but then
Mm,
I don't know, their partner turns away, or they kind of or they repeat themselves, or some different kind of cue, right?
mhm,
That's like, uh-oh, are you here with me? Uh-oh, am I
mhm,
safe here? So help me understand, what are you feeling inside when you're asking these questions?
mhm, mhm.
And I love the question that you asked, what would you be left alone with if you weren't able to ask this question?
Yeah. If I told you, can't ask the questions, what would that leave you stuck with? All alone with, right? What would
Mhm.
you be alone with if you were not asking questions? You know, and how
So,
yeah, and even as we say that now, like, well, we're probably adding on. And I would do this really slow. I mean, I would spend as much time as I sort of can with each question. So I just want to say that we're kind of, going
giving you
quickly, but
ideas. Mhm.
yeah, to give you ideas. But we might even also ask, with that feeling that just came up as you think about being left alone, like, what does your protection want you to do with that? How does your protection usually deal with that kind of feeling?
Mhm.
To sort of help them see how, right, it's part of their way they've learned to cope to keep their balance in the relationship. Uh, and so, anything else, Michelle, about just how to we're wanting to give you some questions to help you expand the experience of the questions for the injuring partner. Um, and then we also were talking about how important it is to try to balance, making sure that you bring in I'm sorry, for the injured partner, you're making sure you're also bringing in the injuring partner. Um,
Mhm. Yeah, so you're always kind of like watching them, watching their body language, watching their eyes. Are they able to kind of like internally regulate themselves and listen and take in what their partner is saying? Do they start to shut down? When do they start to shut down? Do they start to get reactive? Because we're trying to like start regulate two nervous systems, right? And
yes.
so we can't just like forget about the injuring person while they might be George Fowler talks about green, yellow, red, right? We want to make sure that they're in the green and be noticing yellow if they're in the red and they're like turned away and shut down and just completely checked out. Well, now neither person, like this person, the injured partner isn't safe to share their emotions. And then this person's not going to be able to respond to them. So we don't want it to get to that point, right? We want to keep checking in and check in. Like you said, we go really, really slow to
Exactly.
make sure that both people can tolerate what we're talking about. And so we're just kind of like, and we're just like one layer at a time, peeling back.
I like that. Yeah, peeling back one layer at a time of the cycle that is coming up in your office as you go closer to this painful stuff.
Right. Yes. And we might start to ask, like, what would it be like because the thing is, we might have assumptions of how the person feels, like the hurt, the pain, the fears,
Mhm.
and they will have very specific things to them. So we don't want to assume, oh, you're just worried they're going to leave again, or, oh, they're just, it must be that. Well, it might be that in part, but there
Yeah.
might be very specific things to them and their experience. So we want to ask them about, what does this say to you about how your partner sees to you? What do you imagine? How are they seeing you? How are you seeing yourself here? So we don't want to assume, we want to better understand their experience. And then, of course, what would make it difficult, or what would it be like to tell your partner, I
Mhm.
wonder, is it really over? Or I wonder, why did you choose them and not me? I wonder what it would be like to tell your partner. So then that's kind of the next layer of, like, once you've kind of understand a little bit of the hurt or pain,
Mhm.
then you kind of find, well, they'll lie to me, or they won't tell me the truth, or they don't want to hear it, or they're tired of me asking these same questions over and over again. So then you kind of start to find out, what is the roadblock or roadblocks to sharing the hurt, the pain, the vulnerability. Maybe it's something they've never been able to do in their relationship, or maybe it's something they can't do right now because of the affair and the injuries.
Yeah. Yeah. Often it's probably something they've never been able to do in their relationship.
Right.
You know? So we're dealing with kind of the double whammy there, you know. Um, but you want that we're really working to make all this stuff explicit,
Yes.
validate it, be with them in that. Um, and if you feel stuck when reactivity comes up, I think one of the best, I think about Leanne Campbell saying this, probably maybe at one of our core skills, like, you can always zoom out
Mm-hmm.
and reflect kind of their shared dilemma. I mean, it's a great move when you're stuck to kind of zoom out and be able to say, oh, right. You get overwhelmed by all this feelings. It's a mix of fear and anger. And it just, there's just this part of you that says, if he would just answer these questions, I would feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And the questions are bearing down on you. So of course you turn and you start to, ask all those questions. And then you almost feel like deer in the headlights because this hasn't gone well. You want this to be better so badly, and the kind of tried, but now when the questions come, you kind of panic and you are afraid it's just going to get worse. Oh my God.
Right.
So
And
when
that's
we
a great,
do that empath, it can feel really bad to the therapist because we're like, oh my God, here we are stuck. But we can pull back and reflect that shared dilemma. You're reflecting the cycle, you're validating, you're kind of holding them there, helping them see it. Um, it's fine to get there and reflect it. You're organizing it for them. It's helpful.
yes, that is what helps regulate our nervous system. Someone's helping us make sense of this. Someone sees and hears and understands and isn't running away, isn't panicked, isn't getting into the cycle with us, is saying, this is where you guys get stuck. And I think that's a great action step that before your couple comes in, you can write down, oh, so, and you know, it's kind of like a hypothesis, right? But from what you know so far, oh, so the more you ask questions, the more you start to get panicked and overwhelmed, and you're not sure how you're going to answer those. So you start to get quiet. And when you see them get quiet, the more you feel like there's something not okay here. I'm not safe here. They're not taking my pain seriously. Maybe they're too, tired of my pain. They're
Yes.
can't handle it. So then you are more dysregulated, and now you're scared, and so it comes out more with more questions. And oh, this is the loop you get caught in. So that's a great action step before your couple comes in. Write this simple: the more you do this, the more you do that, and the more you do that, the more you do this, because that's the zoom out that we can come back to again and again. And it will, evolve and change as we go and through the layers.
Yeah.
So go slow,
Go slow.
write your cycle out. And a very simple reframe is on the outside, you ask questions, when on the inside, you feel overwhelmed with pain or fear.
Yeah.
And that's a great simple on the outside, inside. So
And I
these
want to
are
give you permission to say you get overwhelmed with anger, because sometimes that is what we have too.
for sure. Yeah.
Which is what you said, Michelle, right? We want to meet them where they are with their emotions, whatever they're giving you on the inside, you feel like, scared, angry, so hurt, yes. And then on the outside, it comes up as these questions.
Yes. So I really like to write this stuff down on my sheet before they come in, because we get overwhelmed, we get dysregulated, and having like, okay, this is what I'm going to come back to when, the questions start to pull me away or feel overwhelming, or I'm not sure what to do. Okay, this is what I'm going to come back to. This is what I can do the zoom out thing that Dr. Spiller talked about, right? So I would love for you guys to share with us maybe one of your tricks, like one of the things that you write on your notepad before your couple comes in that helps you navigate these difficult questions and remember, and how you put them into the cycle, because it can be a lot.
That'd be great. Yeah. And let us know what other questions you have about affairs. We're having a great time with this. So, we'll keep making these videos if we've got questions to answer. So thanks.
Thanks so much, everyone. Bye-bye.